on his own, not so much.
So it was more
more support.
You were one-on-one sitting there saying, my favorite animal is. Did you do that with this one?
We talked whole group about, I took on the board and modeled how I would mark off from the old paper when I tried it on the new paper, that kind of thing, and then I walked around the room as we did that. And he would mark it off on the paper, but he didn't write it.
Right, so really he was more of, when I say, are you doing all the work or is the student doing all the work, you were sitting there having to like spoon feed writing this, where you gave him a little more independence. So next time you might have to really sit beside him and say, okay, my favorite animal.
And some of them, you know, on the level 1, they're having difficulty formulating their thoughts and getting it on paper, but also because they're still learning how to write their letters, how to inform the graphics. They're at a totally different stage of learning in the writing process.
I had a few students that I think were in between like Jesse's and Mindy's, and so I kind of I had like 3 or 4, and I pulled them over to a table and was kind of going around with them, and he would tell me what he wanted to write, and I would say, okay, write it, and then I would go to this one, and then back to this one, and they got it down, but they didn't write what was on the graphic organizer. You know, they just stated the name of the animal. But then he did start writing the sentence he told me, you know, with the beginning sound and ending sound, the beginning sound and ending sound of the words. But like Karen said, that is a lot for them to come up with.
And that's where you can see where he is. You know,
Exactly.
He's got beginning and ending.
And he was able to tell you, but he just wasn't there.
Yeah, and he could repeat it several times. I'd say, no, what is your sentence going to be? And he kept repeating the same thing, so he knew what he wanted to write. He's just at a stage where that's just where he is. He can get his thoughts out, but getting them on paper.
Right.
And that's the thing with this student, he can tell me. I mean, he can respond verbally, but he still doesn't know all of his letter sounds. So to actually write what he's trying to say, he can't do it.
And now it says, you know, they combination of talking, drawing, and writing. But their writing, they wouldn't made it because they don't have that combination of being able to write it yet. But they could do the other 2. And Mindy was saying, well, you know, now we did 1 and 3. How about those 2s? And the 2s are always the hardest because they're working within that standard. Here I would say he's a 1 because you had to completely support him with everything. He couldn't do, I mean, so what would be a 2? And you said, I really think this was.
Yeah. This student wrote, my favorite animal is the, and then left out what animal it was. She meant mouse. And then she gave a reason, and it's my favorite because the mouse is pink. In the story, the mouse really wasn't pink. But,
Right.
Yeah, I would say that was a 2.
Yeah.
Did y'all have any that you would?
Well, this one said, my favorite animal is I think it's supposed to be an owl. And he said, I like the owl because I like it, it is fun. So that's not pulling quite enough to be a 3.
Yeah.
Right.
But he did name.
Yeah, he did
his
name,
animal.
so that would be good. So now looking at our piles, what can we do to move our students forward? Look at your 3 pile. Y'all hold up your 3 pile is amazing. You have a ton of students that you feel like have met the standard, and what they've done, they've gone, and now we have a bunch that have gone above and beyond. So this is one of my favorite documents. You know, we have a million documents sometimes, but the anchor standard is to write arguments to support claims and analysis of topics. Well, this goes all the way from 12th back. You know, we're working backwards. In yours, they're doing the combination of drawing, dictating, and writing to compose an opinion piece. But I want us to look, are they doing 1st grade? Have we moved them to where they're working at a 1st grade level? And if I think we have some that are ready. So let's look and see, how could we change our instruction where we're meeting the needs? Hey, they've met this standard, now they could go to 1st grade. I mean, we could look at the 1st grade standard. You know, you can just send them to Miss Smith and whatever. But meeting that 1st grade standard, do you have students who have already done that?
Yeah, I think we all have, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that stands out to me in the 1st grade standard that we probably didn't do in this piece was where it says, and provide some sense of closure.
Yes.
We haven't really, I mean, in kindergarten,
Right.
they can write 3 sentences.
Right. So
That's another push.
Yeah.
that's something we can do now because they can write an opinion, and some years we're writing reasons.
Right.
with that that group that you think, hey, they're ready to move on, could we work on writing a sense of closure with them? Because I know you told me that you had a student that was like, hey, I've got some more information I want to share.
Right.
So now that they're getting that information, that we could go to a sense of closure with some of these students. And so that's the beauty of having these standards, is that now I know where I need to work with those. So my next step with some of these students that they wrote their opinion in this, they gave reasons, and now I could work with them on a sense of closure, not just stopping them here and saying, you did a great job, you're 3, but now, hey, let's do a sense of closure. So I think a next step with some of our students is pulling them back and, how can we write a sense of closure? What do you think? Okay, since I know you said they had the graphic organizer, what do you think? Do you think that we could pull the graphic organizer for some and they wouldn't need a graphic organizer to write an opinion? They could just write the opinion? Or do you think, some are still going to need that support.
Well, most of the 3s did not need that support.
Okay.
I think since it was based on a close read and we'd gone into so much detail about it and modeled, and maybe they don't need a graphic organizer, but maybe the teacher just modeling. But sometimes when you model and you state your opinion, they're going to go to their table and copy that one. But maybe 1s and 2s will, or 3s won't. But I think for sure a lot of the 3s could do without that.
And I tried to pick a different animal that wasn't in the book. I just said, we're going to pretend that there was a cheetah in this book too. And then I used that as my example,
So that
they wouldn't copy off of me.
If they will write this.
And depending on what you're writing, if you're writing a narrative, some of these 3s may need, this support. But maybe on an opinion piece they didn't. But they may need a graphic organizer if you're writing a different type of piece.
Right. Okay, so I think this was great. We found out, first off, I think the big thing is that our students were working beyond the standard. A lot of them, they were giving reasons and everything. So then we really needed to look at where could we push them to next? What do we need to do? Some of our weaknesses, we realized that a weakness could have been giving some of our high ones a graphic organizer, that they could have gone on without a graphic organizer. But then the graphic organizer really helped some of our students that were struggling to get their thoughts on paper, and then some were still not able to do it. And then we realized that letter formation was a problem for them because they don't have the letter formation, and they had the thoughts, and that they needed to just work on writing the opinion. So we thought maybe some next steps would be with our 3s, getting the ones that we think could maybe do a sense of closure and teaching them how to write a closure, taking away a graphic organizer, and just some more modelings that they could do it independently but not copy our modeling. Y'all agree? Okay, great. So I think y'all did I think they did a fabulous job. So now we looked at it, the content of just the opinion. But this is a great formative assessment. And yesterday we were talking just briefly, now that it's formative, it's informed our instruction for next time, and our opinion writings are just going to get better. But you can also then take this piece, and this is going to help you when you are relaying what's handwriting's looking like. Do they know their end marks? Are they capitalizing that first letter? And I know it's capitalized the first word in a sentence, pronoun I, so you can start looking at those things within that piece. Then you can start looking at the language aspect of it too, the grammar, right letters, the consonant sounds, able to spell phonetically. So you can also use this piece for so many other things. But I just wanted us to look at it for one thing because that could get so overwhelming for us to look. I know some of the other grades, and I know y'all are great about giving the parents so much information about what they're able to do and what they're working on, have made rubrics that they will send on certain pieces. They don't send a rubric home on everything, but if it's a piece that we've really spent a lot of time looking at together, that you put a piece on, and this is just, hey, if this is what they can do when you're putting it all together. Because some will say at home, they can write their letters, they can write Word. What are you talking about? I don't get it. And I know y'all are great to keep all these things and show them. They're putting a rubric on, sending it home, and you can address all of these things with just this one piece of writing, which I think kindergarten is great to do. But we talked about the content aspect of it, and we can give them a 3, 2, or 1. And y'all can tweak this. I was just writing first through 5th, we'll send different things home. And then just the language aspect. And they can get a 3, 2, 1 in a handwriting and send them home just every so often. This is what they can do when they put it all together. And they can also see their growth through this. This is, it's sort of in the middle of the 9 weeks, and then they're going to grow so much more by the end, where they could have been a 2, now they're a 3. Or you have some that were a 1 and all of a sudden become 3 towards the end because of all the work they've done. So I'll send that, and y'all can tweak and look at that.
Well, and Ms. Dean was asking us to give her information of topics that we're going to cover in our spring parent conferences. So I think that would be a really good thing to use to go through.
If you just had a couple pieces of writing, because that's going to cover a lot.
Because they're going to understand a little better the 1, 2s, and 3s. They can't comprehend that when they just look at a report card with this right.